There was a version of you who laughed without fear, a version of you who trusted easily, a version of you who didn't overthink every word, every silence, every goodbye. She didn't disappear, she was wounded. And today, this is about healing her, remembering who you were before the world taught you to be careful, before disappointment taught you to lower your expectations, before betrayal taught you to guard your heart. There was a woman who believed deeply. She believed in people. She believed in effort. She believed that kindness would always be returned with kindness. That woman wasn't naive. She was brave. The world often calls it innocence, but it was actually courage. Courage to trust without proof. Courage to love without guarantees. Courage to hope without evidence. Somewhere along the way, life introduced pain. Maybe it was rejection. Maybe it was abandonment. Maybe it was a moment when you gave everything and received nothing in return. And slowly, without noticing, you began to change. You stopped speaking as freely. You started analyzing tone, timing, intent. You learned how to protect yourself. But protection slowly turned into distance. Distance turned into numbness. And numbness became your new normal. Healing begins when you stop judging that earlier version of yourself for being too much. She wasn't too emotional. She wasn't too trusting. She wasn't too sensitive. She was open. And openness is not weakness. It is the most vulnerable form of strength. To heal her, you must first honor her. Sit with the memories of who you were before life hurt you and say, you did nothing wrong by believing. Understanding that pain changed you, but it didn't define you. Life has a way of reshaping us through impact. Pain leaves marks, not just on the heart, but on identity. You may notice that after certain experiences, you became quieter, harder, sharper, or colder. Maybe you stopped asking for help. Maybe you learned to handle everything alone. Maybe you became the strong one who never complains. People might admire this version of you. They might say, "You're so resilient," but they don't see the cost. They don't see how resilience sometimes comes from necessity, not choice. Oprah Winfrey once spoke openly about how childhood trauma shaped her self-worth for years. Even after massive success, the pain didn't disappear just because she was admired. Healing is not pretending pain didn't change you. Healing is understanding that change does not equal damage. You adapted to survive. That does not mean the softer parts of you died. They went into hiding, and they are waiting for safety, not perfection, to come back out. You are allowed to evolve without becoming unrecognizable to yourself. You are allowed to keep the strength you earned and still reclaim the tenderness you lost. Pain influenced you, yes, but it does not own you. Letting go of the guilt for not being the same person anymore. One of the quietest forms of suffering is guilt over personal change. You might look at old photos or old messages and think, I used to be happier, or I used to be more loving, and instead of compassion, you feel shame. Shame for becoming guarded. Shame for setting boundaries. Shame for saying no, but growth often looks like loss before it looks like gain. The woman you were before life hurt, you had no reason to protect herself. The woman you are now learned protection the hard way. Neither version is wrong. They belong to different chapters. Think of Michelle Obama, who has spoken about how public scrutiny and responsibility changed her personality, her openness, and her privacy. She didn't lose herself. She adjusted to survive the weight she carried. You do not need to apologize for the version of you that learned from pain. Healing does not mean going backward. It means integrating the past with the present. You don't need to become who you were. You need to become whole. Grieving the loss of the life you thought you'd have healing, the woman you were before life hurt you requires grief. Real grief. Not just for people you lost, but for expectations that never came true. Maybe you thought love would be simpler. Maybe you thought loyalty would be mutual. Maybe you imagined a future that looked safe and predictable. When those dreams collapsed, you didn't just lose situations, you lost a vision. And grief that is ignored turns into bitterness. Many women carry unspoken grief for years, functioning on the outside while mourning silently on the inside. Serena Williams once shared how she had to grieve not just losses in tennis, but the life balance she imagined she would have earlier. Grief is not weakness, it is acknowledgement. Sit with the sadness of what didn't happen. cry for the version of you that waited, hoped, and tried. When you allow yourself to grieve, you create space for acceptance, and acceptance is the doorway to peace. Rebuilding trust with yourself first. Before trusting the world again, you must rebuild trust with yourself. Many wounds don't come from what others did, but from moments when you ignored your intuition to keep the peace. Times you stayed when you knew you should leave. Times you accepted less than you deserved because you were afraid of being alone. Healing requires honesty, not self-blame. Say to yourself, I was doing the best I could with what I knew at the time. Then promise yourself something new, that you will listen next time. Trust is rebuilt through small acts of self-respect, keeping your word to yourself, resting when you're tired, speaking up when something feels wrong. Adele once spoke about how her divorce forced her to relearn self-trust after years of prioritizing others' happiness over her own. Self-trust is the foundation of emotional safety. And when you feel safe with yourself, you don't need to armor up against the world. Learning that softness can exist alongside strength. Many women believe healing means becoming strong enough to never feel deeply again. That is not healing. That is avoidance. True healing allows softness to coexist with strength. You can be kind without being naive. You can be open without being unprotected. You can love without losing yourself. Strength is not emotional numbness. Strength is emotional regulation. It's the ability to feel without drowning, to care without collapsing, to love without self-abandonment. Think of Malala Yousafzai. Her story is one of unimaginable trauma. Yet she continues to speak with compassion, not hatred. She did not harden her heart to survive. She strengthened it. Healing does not require you to build walls. It asks you to build discernment, redefining what safety actually means for many women. Safety becomes associated with control. Control of emotions, control of environments, control of people. But control is exhausting. Real safety is not about eliminating risk. It's about knowing you can handle discomfort without losing yourself. Safety is knowing you can walk away. Safety is knowing you can say no. Safety is knowing that even if something ends, you will survive it. When you redefine safety, you stop shrinking your life to avoid pain. You expand your capacity to recover from it. Healing the woman you were before life hurt you does not mean protecting her from every possible wound. It means teaching her she is strong enough to heal again if necessary. Allowing joy without waiting for permission. One of the most heartbreaking effects of pain is delayed joy. You might tell yourself, I'll be happy when everything is stable, or I don't deserve joy yet, or what if it gets taken away again? But joy is not a reward for suffering. It is a necessity for healing. You are allowed to laugh without explaining yourself. You are allowed to feel excitement without fearing the fall. Joy does not make you careless. It makes you alive. Emma Watson once spoke about unlearning the belief that happiness must be earned through productivity or sacrifice. Healing invites joy back in, not as a guarantee, but as a choice. Becoming the woman who protects the girl you once were. The final stage of healing is embodiment. You stop trying to save your past self, and you become the person she needed. You speak up now, you choose better now, you walk away sooner now, not from fear, but from wisdom. Healing does not erase scars. It gives them meaning. You don't forget what hurt you. You learn from it, and one day, you'll realize something powerful. The woman you were before life hurt you didn't disappear because she was weak. She evolved because she was strong enough to survive, and the woman you are becoming is not broken. She is becoming whole. Forgiving yourself for surviving the only way you knew how. One of the deepest, most overlooked steps in healing is self-forgiveness. Not forgiveness for others, not closure conversations, not explanations, but forgiveness for yourself, forgiveness for the ways you coped when you didn't have better tools, forgiveness for staying too long, forgiveness for leaving too late, forgiveness for shutting down emotionally, forgiveness for lashing out, forgiveness for going silent, forgiveness for becoming someone you barely recognize just to get through the day. Survival is not always pretty. Sometimes it looks like avoidance. Sometimes it looks like numbness. Sometimes it looks like pretending you're fine when you're not. And many women carry shame for these versions of themselves. as if endurance was a moral failure. It wasn't. You were adapting under pressure. Brené Brown has spoken openly about how shame thrives in silence and self-judgment, but dissolves when met with compassion. Healing asks you to look at your past self and say, I see why you did that. Not to justify harm, but to release blame. When you forgive yourself, you reclaim your energy. You stop reliving the same moments in your mind. You stop trying to rewrite the past, and you finally free yourself to live fully in the present. Self-forgiveness is not forgetting. It is understanding. It is choosing peace over punishment. And when you forgive yourself, you don't just heal the woman you were before life hurt you. You honor the woman who survived it. You are not healing to go backward. You are healing to move forward without losing yourself. That laughter you miss, it can return. That trust you mourn, it can be rebuilt. That woman you think you lost, she's still here, waiting, listening, and ready to rise, this time with wisdom, boundaries, and strength.